Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I wanted to do some experimenting. So I have a piece of Canson XL watercolor paper and another one of these cutting boards that I mentioned in a previous video. I got this set of, and they're plastic, and yeah, I've been using them for watercolor. I will say painter's tape sticks to it a little bit better than washi tape. But I just taped down my watercolor paper here, and then I'm just using some clean water first with just a flat little Ranger brush. I've mentioned these brushes a lot of people asking me about brushes lately, and this little set of Ranger ones that I link to a lot, I really like them, and they are so affordable. So I'm using with that these Daniel Smith watercolors, so cheap brushes, expensive watercolors. That's how I roll. The Essential set, that's the only colors I used, was from the Essential set, and I showed these. I just got these not too long ago, and I put them in this little portable painter palette that I did a review on. And I'm just using those colors and applying them as a wash for this background and like creating kind of a rainbow effect. I will say I've never really done this before. I experimented once before this, and it was a disaster. It just did not turn out. It was a mess. So I was determined to try and make this work. It's so funny when you see people do these online, you watch other people's videos and the colors just blend and everything looks so fabulous. And I was like, what the heck? So I just went back and forth playing with these colors, applying them in rainbow order. And a couple of times I would mix before even putting them onto the paper just to get that transition the way I wanted it. So, I'd mix the red and yellow to make that orange, and then the yellow and blue to make that green, just to get the colors more obvious. And if I was a more patient person, I would do the wash first, let it dry, do a second, you could do a second, third layer and really glaze the colors and get them really bright and vibrant. But I'm impatient, and like I said, I'd already done this once before and it was just hideous. So I was like, I just want to make this work. I had the idea in my head for my card, and I was just determined. So I only went partway down the paper because I had a die in mind that I was planning to use, and that's what I was holding up a couple times, and it's from Concord 9th, and it's from their Layers of Love die set. So my idea was to create a window, and then this fun little watercolor rainbow background is going to be behind it. So once I was finally pleased with how the colors were kind of like melding into each other and creating this rainbow look, I dried it with my heat tool, and like all watercolors, as you dry it, the colors do dry back a bit. They're not as vibrant as they were when they're wet. So that's where it helps to have watercolors that you can do like multiple layers of if you really want to get it more bright and vibrant. This I was happy with though. So I dried it completely. People have been asking me about this cutting board, so that's why I showed that. So far it seems to take heat well. They say those cutting boards, they say they're dishwasher safe and that, so they're able to take heat, and so far they seem okay with my heat tool. But people were also saying you could probably sand them to paint or to tape down onto them, like it'll grip the tape better. I haven't yet got to that point yet, just because if I'm not happy with with my art supplies and that, I'm just going to put them in my kitchen. So if you sand them, they probably wouldn't be too good for that. So anyway, once everything was dry, I ran some heavyweight white cardstock. This is Simon Says Stamp 120 pound cardstock through my machine with that heart die, as well as one of Simon's basic rectangle dies. And then I ended up having to run the heart die through twice to make sure it cut all the way through, because that rectangle die kind of just made it not cut perfectly. And then I had a tiny little piece of this Canson watercolor paper. So I did the exact same thing using the exact same colors, just did a really quick rainbow watercolor wash. And then I ran that through with, there's this little like heart or flower cluster die that comes with the heart die. So I ran that through a couple of times, and then while I had my big shutout, I also die cut this piece of pattern paper from the My Favorite Things Black and White Basics 6x6 pack. You guys know I like to hoard my pattern paper. I rarely use it. I have a disgusting amount of it, but I thought I could cut into this and it'd be okay. So I did all my die cutting and set it aside. And then I popped the centerpiece out from this white cardstock, and I realized I was going to be sitting here for a while popping out all these little tiny leaves in that. So I actually thought for once and pulled out the foam pad and the little Sizzix magnetic die brush kit. I flipped the cardstock over so I didn't make any marks on the front, and just ran that tool over this like multiple times, and it pops out all those little pieces. So I'm not having to sit there or use a pin or anything else. So much easier. That's what I like this for. It also works on the dies themselves if they're full of little bits and pieces of paper, but I really like it for this too. It just saves my saves me a bunch of time. So after I had done all that, got all the little pieces popped out, I can trim down this piece of watercolor paper so that it fits behind that heart the way I want it to. So I'm just keep holding up that piece of cardstock just to make sure, because I want to show as much of that color as possible. So I did all my trimming, and then I want to stamp my sentiments onto this. I thought about doing this as a square card, just to let the heart, you know, kind of be the focus. But I decided to go with a rectangle shape because I wanted to stamp sentiments along the bottom portion of this, because I've got this Concord 9th Best Banners stamp set, another set that I bought a few months ago and still hadn't used, and I wanted to use it all together because there's so many sentiments that were just perfect for this. So I decided as I was doing this, I was like, I'm going to make this into basically like a wedding themed card. I thought that would just be really cute. So I lined up that stamp, and it just happened to fit after all that die cutting, and used my anti-static powder tool first, and I'm stamping that large perfect word in Simon Says clear embossing ink. And then I'm using Ranger's liquid platinum embossing powder. This is a neat powder because when you first pour it on, it looks like it's almost going to be transparent. But then once you melt it, it becomes that gorgeous liquidy platinum look that just took the kind of crafting world by storm there for a while. I don't use this very often, but then every time I do, I'm like, oh, I like it. So I melted that with my heat tool, and then I got the little companion sentiments out of the stamp sheet, and I'm going to stamp those with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, so it will say to the perfect couple. So I just lined those up, and I like how these sentiments are. They're actually, the little words and everything themselves are not perfectly aligned. They're kind of up and down and everything like that, so you don't need to stamp everything perfectly. I like that. You can get away with a little bit more when things are purposely imperfect. But stamp those with that black ink, and then I decided I wanted a little bit more of this liquid platinum embossing powder. So I just very lightly edged the white cardstock with the clear embossing ink, like very lightly. It's not super obvious that it's there. If you want like a thicker, you could like rub it, you know, run the edges against the cardstock, get more ink. But I just wanted that tiny, tiny little bit of this embossing powder all around the edge just to pull in more of that platinum color, because I just thought it was so pretty. So I poured that all over, coated all the edges, and then poured the embossed powder all over the edges, and then melted that with my heat tool. And then I flipped this over, and I'm going to coat the back with foam tape. I have all these little thin strips left over from a previous project, which I never throw out, these little bits of foam tape. I usually just stick them to the side of the roll itself. And then they always come in handy. And when you pay this much for foam tape, like I use every little tiny bit possible. So I coated the back with foam tape, and then I flipped this over onto the watercolor paper. And this card, you totally could make it into a shaker card. I did think about it. I was like, oh, this will look really cute. You know, back the die cut with acetate, and then add some sequins, etc. But I decided just to keep it as is, just more simple. But it is a great option, and it would be really fun. But for this time, I just thought, you know what, I just want the watercoloring to kind of take center stage. So after I adhered everything, I used my little Xyron tape runner to add more adhesive, and then I'm adhering this to that black and white pattern paper. I chose that specifically because I just thought kind of like the graphic black and white lines and everything would look really good with that rainbow watercolor, just kind of make everything pop. And then my card base is some more Simon Says 120 pound cardstock that I'd cut to 4 1/4 by 11 inches. And I'm scoring it at 5 1/2 with my Teflon bone folder. So this will be a top folding A2 sized card. So got that scored and folded, and then I'm going to stamp the inside first. So I have more sentiments from that Best Banner set. This time I'm inking up the word best with that same clear ink. I use my anti-static powder tool first, and then I'm going to stamp this stamp and then use that liquid platinum embossing powder again. And this is one of those kind of powders that even after it's embossed and you see it in pictures, it doesn't really look like much. Like it almost looks kind of gray. But in real life, it's like this warm gray metallic look to it. It is really, really pretty. If you didn't jump on the bandwagon when it became super, super popular, I highly recommend this embossing powder. It's just gorgeous. So stamped that, embossed it, and then stamped the little companion sentiments with the VersaFine Onyx black ink. So it'll say, hope you have the best day ever. I just think that is so cute. I love how it's, you know, you can build all sorts of sentiments for all sorts of occasions with this. So I stamped all of that, and then there's a couple little heart stamps in the set, a solid one and an outline. So I took the solid one and I just inked it up with Memento Ladybug ink and just stamped that right next to the sentiment. And I actually nearly forgot that I had die cut these. I found them after I was done making the card, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, I had meant to use these. So I pulled them out, added just some Tonic Nouveau adhesive at the back, just little tiny little dabs of adhesive, and adhered those kind of around the inside of the sentiment, just kind of tie the whole fun little like rainbow colors together and just really finish off the inside of this card. So added my little dots of adhesive, put an acrylic block over them to let them dry so that everything just dries nice and flat to the inside of the card. And then to finish off the card front itself, I'm just going to flip over that pattern paper card front there and apply more of my little Xyron tape runner, just going around the perimeter first, and then I add a bit to the centers just for that extra bit of security there. So apply all my adhesive, and I'm going to line that up with the card front. Like I had said, I'd use the Simon Says basic rectangle dies. The largest die in the set is A2 size, so it's the exact size of a card front, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I lined that up, and this will cover the complete card front with that pattern paper and my die cut and my little rainbow center there, and that finished off my card. So like the title of the video says, I do have a giveaway going on. I was sent a second portable painter. It was sent separately and it arrived Friday, I think. It arrived not with this other one, so I will link to my little portable painter review, but I have this brand new one in the box to give away. So head on over to my blog, I'll have a link below, and there will be little instructions on how to enter the little giveaway widget. So thank you so much, Portable Painter, for sending me a second one to do this. And yeah, if you guys are interested in that or just interested in the supplies used, etc., I will have links below the video to my blog post, links to all the supplies used. All that info will be in the description box below. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.